Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 2024 Springfield College Olympic and Para-Athletics Connections virtual panel discussion. My name is Maria D'Agostino Crawford. I'm a proud alum of our sport management program, class of 1991, and I am currently serving as Springfield College's interim director of alumni relations. I am so glad you are able to join us this evening for this very special program. We have 9 alumni panelists representing 5 different countries as far away as Japan. If you have any questions for our panelists, I encourage you this evening to please submit them via the Q&A, and we will do our best to get to them should time allow. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening's program, Matt Osgood. Matt is a proud graduate of the Springfield College Communications and Sports Journalism program, class of 2004. His journalism has appeared in the Washington Post, The Atlantic, Smithsonian, and many other well-regarded publications. He currently teaches at Endicott College in Beverly, Massachusetts, and he lives with his wife and their 3 children and a Labrador retriever named Gabby Douglas after the 2012 gold medal winning gymnast. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Matt.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Maria. Thank you all for joining as we celebrate our little liberal arts school on the Massasoit River. And as we all know, despite its relative size, it's not uncommon that Springfield College makes its imprint on the quadrennial event known as the Olympic Games. To all of us on this call at this roundtable, it seems natural that someone who once walked our campus is in the mix at this event. There are stories we heard during our time on campus. These are, in many of our cases, people we shared the classroom with, men and women we passed on senior walk, and friends we walked with to the dining hall. Tom Waddell, class of 59, placed 6th in the decathlon in the 1968 Mexico City Games. In Vancouver in 2010, Aaron Pack, 03, won bronze in the bobsled. Nancy Darsh, 73, twice, and Tony DeChico, 1970, coached their way to gold in women's basketball and women's soccer, respectively. Jeff Blatnick, 79, wrestled his way to gold in the 1984 Los Angeles Games. Justin Zook, 08, similarly struck gold in Athens, Beijing, and London in the 100-meter backstroke on the U.S. Paralympic team. These are just a few names out of the dozen of SC alumni who've melded our spirit, mind, and body philosophy with the Olympic motto of Citius, Altius, Fortius, Communitaire. Faster, higher, stronger, together. It's also noteworthy that 2 Summer Olympic sports would not even exist if not for the forward-thinking minds of Springfield College. Indeed, basketball, in which the women and the men both shot their way to gold in Paris, began at the birthplace and bounced to Bercy Arena for the title game in the City of Lights. Volleyball, invented by William Morgan in 1890, saw its action conclude with the American women earning silver medal, completing the sport's journey from the Arc on Alden Street to the Arc de Triomphe. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our panelists tonight. Starting with Tom Fontecchio, class of 69, he was the youth coach of Frederic Richard, who, as a member of the U.S. men's gymnastics team, left Paris with a bronze medal in the team final. Brandon Smith King, class of 78, grad 79, left Alden Street to a legendary coaching career at Tufts. In 2020, she took on the role of Secretary General of the Bermuda Olympic Association. Keith Bryant, 92, is the CEO, Executive Director of USA Judo, a position he's held since 1996. Keith has served on the Olympic and Paralympic Committee and has been to 8 Olympic Games. Christy Gelaretto, grad 96, is the mental performance and mental health lead for Rowing Canada. The Canadian eights took home the silver medal. Kazu Onada, 99, grad 02, joins us from Japan. Good morning, Kazu.
Good morning from Japan.
Kazu served as the technical official at the Kobe 2024 Paralympic World Championships. So once again, good morning. Chris
Good
Katona,
morning.
class of 11, is the associate director, anti-doping and sanctions with USA Track and Field. Mike Dean, class of 2013, spent his June on the event staff at Hayward Field at the University of Oregon during the Olympic trials. Gabby Gerard is a fellow COSJ major. Shout out Marty Dobrow. And like Keith, lives in Olympic City, i.e. Colorado Springs. She is a senior editor at NBC Sports. Aisha Rafai, class of 22, competed in Paris for Singapore as a single scull rower. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to start in reverse class order. We're going to start with Aisha. The first question I have for you is, how did you begin your Olympic involvement?
Hi everyone. So I actually started, I guess I also went to Rio in 2016. So that was my first Olympic debut. How I got involved was basically I had to qualify for it. But I also became Singapore's first Olympic rower. And I guess if I were to bring it all the way back to how I started rowing, it's I tried out a sport that none of my friends were doing. Basically, when I started, there were only 6 of us who were rowing in Singapore. And one day I decided that, I decided to try out for the national team. And when I was in the national team, I competed for Singapore, and there was a qualification for London that I went to, and top 5 qualified, and I was second to last. So I was number 14 out of 16 countries. And I decided that if I want to qualify, I need to do something with my life. So I was a teacher back then in Singapore, left my job, and then trained full time. And 4 years later, I qualified for Rio. So that was how I started my Olympic journey.
That's wonderful. Congratulations again. Must be an honor. Gabby, what about you?
Yeah, so once I started working at NBC Sports, one of the things I was most looking forward to were the Olympics. So I've been fortunate enough to swing over to our Olympic team for the last 3 Olympics now, and kind of be involved with the digital video publishing there.
That's incredible. Mike?
Hi there, everyone. I got involved. My sort of involvement started really volunteering at smaller track and field events with a great agency, and the city where I'm from, and that kind of led me into having the opportunity to know the right people to lend my services to bigger events, and also of lately then the USA trials that were in Eugene.
That sounds great. Chris, what about you?
My involvement started really back at Springfield. I had professors that actually provided information about programs, particularly the FLAME program, which is Finding Leaders Amongst Leaders Everywhere. It's a program the USOPC runs where they find minority students cross country, get them involved in the movement in various spaces. And shout out to Professor Corsi, I think was the first professor who really introduced me to that program. And since then, I've been involved. I was able to turn connections I made from that program into an internship in Lake Placid, New York, turned that into my first full-time position with the USOPC. Connections I made there, eventually made to track and field, and I've been here at track and field for almost 9 years. So it truly did start back in Springfield with professors and providing me an opportunity to just get engaged in the space. So
sure. Yeah, the support of professors is so important, even getting a start in anything. That's great. Kazu, how about you?
Yes, I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. How
Okay.
did your involvement with this world begin?
Okay, well, my case, I participated as a technical official in Kobe 2024 Para Athletics World Championship. I say technical officials, but actually I worked as an athletic trainer. Went back to my undergraduate, I majored in sports biology, at the end of junior year, my advisor, Dr. Smith, said to me, "Oh, Kazu, you cannot apply for medical school." So I thought, because my GPA was not good enough to apply for medical school. And I asked Professor Charles Redmond, and I said, "Oh, I want to study exercise physiology." And Professor Redmond said to me, "Oh, you're not going to make it in 2 years. It's impossible. So why don't you study athletic training?" Oh, that's a good idea. So I started studying exercise physiology and athletic training on the master's level. So I had to complete, I think, 1,500 hours internship to take the BOC exam. And my preceptor, Professor Bergquist, asked me to participate in the Special Olympics as a volunteer of the athletic trainer. That's the first time I get involved into the Paralympic movement. And I seriously enjoy watching and participating as an athletic trainer. That's my first point.
That's incredible. A lot of good experience. Christy, why don't you tell us about how you got started?
Sure, thank you. So I'm originally from the States. I grew up in Virginia, and I was a gymnast. And Mary Lou Retton was my hero. And I wanted everything gymnastics forever, but just didn't quite pan out that way. Along my gymnastics career, I ran into some, what now has a name that, thank you, Simone Biles, is the twisties. And so that really sparked my interest in the sports psychology side of things. So in the early 90s, those programs did not exist. There were 2 programs in the US that had something related, and Springfield was one of them. So I chose that, and I'm so thankful and grateful because of the ripple effect that has on my life. Fast forward 25 plus years, I'm blessed to work with an organization called the Canadian Sport Institute Pacific, which is very much like the USOC, just the Canadian version. And, I was contracted to work with high performance athletes, having done a lot of the specialized counseling work, right? We can do mental performance, but the counseling work is where it really starts to stretch into the human. And so I'm blessed to work with Rowing Canada. I'm also quite thrilled to work with Canada Snowboard. So only 16 months away from Milano Cortina. But having been able to do the Summer Olympics as well as the Winter Olympics, it's been a remarkable opportunity for me to be part of all those and with the sports that I'm working with. So that's kind of it in a nutshell for me.
Sure, and that space has changed so much over the past 25 years. It's incredible that somehow all those years, I don't want to say all those years ago, I apologize. You found a space like Springfield College that was so forward thinking so many years ago in that particular spot. Let's move on to Keith. How did you get involved with all of this Olympic stuff?
Yeah, so I was first infected with 5-ring fever at 10 years old, watching the 1980 Olympic Winter Games as a kid in upstate New York, and watching the Miracle on Ice and Eric Heiden's 5 gold medals. Then fast forward my senior year at Springfield, Professor Bob Accorsi and Dr. Mimi Murray encouraged me to pursue the internship out here in Colorado Springs. Fell in love with the Springs and the movement, and then got back to the USOPC in 97, spent 17 years there. And after a quick stint with the Y, took this job at USA Judo for now about the last 8 years. So that has been my Olympic experience. But Springfield played a huge part with that internship and the professors there, like you mentioned before.
That's great. Brandon, let's move on to you.
Hi, everybody. That's a really difficult question. I do not remember a time in my life where I didn't want to be part of the Olympic movement. And I think growing up in Bermuda, I always played sports. And it just came to me this evening that my mother actually tried out for the Olympics when I was a little girl. She just missed making the Olympic team for Bermuda. And of course, during those, it was a different time, and racial imbalances is part of it. And growing up as a child, I competed in many sports, but chose athletics, track and field. And in 1972, I had the opportunity to go to Munich, Germany in the Olympic Youth Camp, and visited Greece the year after. And when I was in Athens, Greece at the Olympic Academy, I learned all about the history, which was appropriate because I was taking a class in the history of sport at Springfield. And really enticed me to, be part of the Olympic movement. I really believed in, so the two worlds came together, the Olympism theme of spirit, mind, and body when I was a freshman at Springfield and being at the Olympic Youth Camp. And after years of teaching and coaching at Tufts University, I had the opportunity to come back home and get involved with Bermuda Olympic Association. Took a pay cut, the things you shouldn't do, but you do for passion of sport. Took a pay cut. It was a dream job to be the Secretary General of the Olympic Association to help mentor and help young people in Bermuda reach their dreams. And so for me, it's always been part of my life. My younger daughter was also a two-time Olympian. And so for me, it's part of my everyday conversation. I'm very proud of, my education at Springfield because that really helped me get the academic background and be exposed to all the different components of sport and what makes a good athlete. There's the sports psychology, there's sports athletic training, which I did, the teaching and the coaching, what we learned there. And I felt to me, it was just my two worlds came together when I came to Springfield. So at my tender age, I continue to enjoy it and love the spirit of Olympism.
Sure, thank you. No, so much goes into educating young athletes, right? Spirit, mind, and the body, and seems to be some wild connective tissues between Springfield College and the Olympic Games. Let's finish this up with Tom. Tom, you have a little bit of a different story. I'd love to hear about your current involvement with a current Olympian.
Well, let's see if I can get myself on here. Full screen. Well, okay, I want to just talk from here. But I was a gymnast at Springfield, and we beat Penn State by 0.05 in 1967. So we had a lot of fun. And I went into teaching, and I became a gymnastics coach at the high school program. And we, from then on, I got elected to be the regional chairman for USA Gymnastics in New England. I was there for 30 years. And I was on the junior coaching staff. I would go to the OTC for training. So we'd be training all these gymnasts out there. And it was quite exciting and fun to be working with the top gymnasts in the United States. And I had a couple of them be on the junior national team during that time. And then along came, I've had 70 students get scholarships to college in gymnastics. So we've had a lot of success in our program. And then I sold my facility. Eventually, I had Frederick Richard. He's quite the sensation right now. He was I started him off at 4 years old, and he stayed with me in our program, and he was quite the dedicated athlete. And now he's at University of Michigan, and we talk every single week about his training and what goes on. And he hopes to be in 2 more Olympics. He's quite the young man. He's trying to promote gymnastics for young men in the United States, and he's been quite the spokesperson. He's got a big TikTok following and everything else, and it's a lot of fun. It really is to have someone of that caliber come into your gym and have him all those years and become an Olympic athlete.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the things that seems to stand out to me based on what you said is, it's one thing to have a caliber of athlete that Fred is, but it also seems like he's got a great caliber kid. It seems like he's a good person. Got bigger dreams beyond just the mat. Would you say that's true?
He wants to promote male, young male gymnasts to be, and do as much as he can to help the sport of gymnastics so it stays on the Olympic schedule.
That's incredible. And he's doing some good work with that. Thank you for all sharing all how you started getting involved in here. And what I learned from all of you just in this last couple minutes is, there is this connective tissue. And I know we're here for Springfield College, but the things that we say and the things that how we talk about the Olympics is very similar to how we talk about Springfield College. Branwen spoke about how, the Olympics have just been part of her life. It's what she talks about every single day. And as we met before, a lot of us mentioned wearing Springfield College stuff out, and we shared these stories of small worlds. Brandon and I, have a mutual friend. Tom and I, know a similar person, and these things happen all over the place just by virtue of us spending 4 years in the same geographical location, even if it wasn't in the same 4-year span. And to me, that's quite incredible. And this idea of Springfield College and the Olympics holding this same kind of element of spirit and the that's going to lead me to my first question. And the first question is around the spirit of the Olympics. And the games create such an energy, such a force every 4 years. They give us something, not just something to do in the dog days of summer, but something to root for, right? They give us something to believe in. At Springfield College, part of our philosophy is the element of spirit. We just talked about that. It's about enduring hard times and embracing the good times with an understanding that somehow we're going to come out a changed and sometimes better person. How does spirit of the Olympics endure in a constantly changing world? We're going to start with Tom.
Well, I think that my hope is that the whole world comes together. The gymnastics, Fred, it was really nice having him, and he met a lot of friends from all different countries. The spirit of the Olympics just brings everybody together. It's electric. It's really hard to explain. I hope everybody gets a chance to go to the Olympics. I mean, I've been to 3 Olympics, and every single one was a little bit different, but every single one was exciting. Everybody had a great feeling about each other, and it wasn't competing against each other. It was the camaraderie that I really noticed, that it was so much fun to watch all these people from all these different countries and all these different athletes congratulating each other and appreciating each other's hard work to get to that level.
Brandon, when we began this conversation, you talked a lot about the spirit of this, and in particular, you were watching Mondo Duplantis break the pole vault world record and be surrounded with people who are his fiercest competitors, particularly in American pole vaulter. Can you talk a little bit about the spirit of the Olympics and how that kind of continues to persist, despite all that's going on in the world?
Yeah, I believe in the good nature of human beings, and sport is the ultimate equalizer, I believe. And when I like I mentioned earlier, I was going to leave. He had one more attempt to break the world record, and I said to my husband, it's time to pack up and go. I'm like, I know this guy a little bit. I think he's an outlier. He does these strange things like breaking the world record by 1 centimeter every time he competes. And so happy I stayed to watch. And there he was receiving, just congratulations, but help from his competitors, who hung around. They all stayed there. And, all of us are involved in sport. And if you've been on a team or individual sport, you know what it's like to support your teammates. And, to go and give each other a hug. And I remember that as an athlete, competing in Central and South America and not speaking Spanish. And, 30, 40 years later, running into women from Cuba who would tap me on my shoulder, and we competed against each other, and we're giving each other hugs. So I think that's the part that brings the best out of us. And when we watch the Olympic Games, it's real. What you all watched on TV, it's real. Because they're all putting in the same work, the hard work, the dedication, commitment, sacrifice, all those things we've learned as coaches and administrators through Springfield. And they're the ones that are playing the story. They're the real narrative there. So I think a part of it is a great appreciation for each other and their abilities. And I got choked up, and when I saw him break the world record, and I saw Sydney break the world record in the hurl, I'm just like, tears are coming to my. I don't even know these people. I know who they are, but I don't have a relationship with them. But I can just feel, the whole stadium just feels this energy of positivity in a world that is so broken at times. And so I think it's a real, not an opportunity, but it's a privilege to be part and amongst that. And so I think the spirit of being in sport is so valuable for our young people to learn and to be on a sports team, whether they're going to be Olympian or not. Sport can bring that out of us as human beings. So for me, that's why I love what I do.
Yeah, that's an incredible answer. It must have been a wonderful experience seeing those people break those world records and do so in a community of their peers. Keith, I'm often interested And we've got these people who are competing against one another at the highest level, and I think a lot of time the stereotype around the Olympics is that we're gonna just kind of root with blind patriotism. We're gonna root for America. We're gonna root for Canada, whoever our team is. But I found in watching that's never really the case. You've got, the Australian backstroker hugging the American backstroker. You've got the two high jumpers from Tokyo a couple years ago hugging one another when they tied for first place. It seems to transcend countries, especially with the athletes. In your experience, is that true on the ground level?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the fans kind of have that big patriotism when they're cheering, and you still can come together and celebrate the movement. But with athletes, I think people watch the 17 days of the games, but maybe they don't realize that these athletes have been competing against each other since they're 12, 14 years old in some cases. And so they become friends. I mean, in judo alone, we have seen that our athletes from the U.S. have married athletes from other countries because they do spend so much time together, traveling around the world and competing. And so it is a love for the sport. And, I think most sportsmen and sportswomen and athletes, with that passion, that commonality, they're all going through the same things like has been discussed. And so, the Olympic Games is really, it's a special competition, but it's another competition that they're all there and they're seeing each other. And so that is some kind of a sense of normalcy that you want to keep when you're trying to perform your best. So short answer, yes, it's a friendship that exists, beyond just the games and is frequent as they travel around the world.
What is, I'm going to follow up with you, Keith. What is the camaraderie? And Brandon, you can chime in here. I know you're both there. What is the camaraderie like around Olympic Village, not just amongst teammates, but amongst different sports, gymnasts and basketball players, or judo athletes from America and judo athletes from France, or what is the energy like in the Olympic Village?
Good,
You
Keith.
want me to go first, Brandon, or?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Well, I wasn't in the village in Paris, but I was in the village 4 times as the village press officer. And, it is really interesting to see how the athletes all come together, especially, there's so much staging that has to happen before you go into an opening or closing ceremony, and you bring all the teams together and they're all dressed up in their gear and taking pictures with one another, whether it is an NBA player or a female gymnast or a swimmer, and to see them all celebrating within the team is amazing. But then you go into the dining hall and you can have 10 countries sitting at a table at the same time with a variety of food. What people eat for breakfast sometimes for other countries versus what we do in the US is pretty amusing sometimes. So yeah, that camaraderie is huge. And one of the things I'll never forget is when you sit in the tunnel about to go into opening ceremony and you hear Team USA chant the USA chant and have the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It's something that, I'll never forget.
That's incredible. Brandon.
Yeah, Keith said it perfectly. I think that, in the village and spent quite a bit of time there. Of course, you're going to have athletes that are going to have their poker face on and, before their competition. And, it's very individual. But I know then post competition, they have all these recreation places and the places of, relaxation by the feedback. They have everything for the athletes. And sometimes if they don't have a jersey on from what country they're, from, you don't know where they're from. You're having conversations. Folks are having conversations with each other, supporting each other. We have some folks on the call who know one of our Bermuda athletes. I had no idea, Aurora. And, and I think that's part of the love of the sport. And of course, we say that the pin exchanging, everybody wants a pin, I'll say from Bermuda, because we're a small country and we had the best pins. Yay. So you get that sense of family, it's unless you're there, it's just a sense of family and safety and security and love for sport. And camaraderie at the same time. It's really fascinating. It will be a good master's thesis or dissertation for somebody. to study that. And I'll just say one thing and I'll shut up. I was going through some materials the other day, or no, some pictures popped up on my phone. And as I mentioned, my daughter was at the Olympics and she has a picture and she was young. It was at the Olympics in London in 2012. And she had a picture of Kobe Bryant, and it popped up on my phone and I'm like, who would have thunk it, and she was so proud of that. And he was there and he's tall, him, my daughter's 5'10" and was 6 foot. And that's something that she cherishes, because of who he is and what he did for basketball, and no longer with us. So you just never know when you're going to meet the next prime minister or president of a country, to be quite honest.
Sure. Yeah, that's incredible. And I love these images. I love this idea of, all of these world-class athletes getting together, whether they're a rower or a basketball player or a swimmer. And really, there are some great pictures. I love the photos of, like Kevin Durant and Simone Biles, standing next to one another, one being, 7 feet tall, one being, quite under 5 feet tall. Sticking with the theme of spirit, Kazoo, I'd love your thoughts on, how we're able to keep the Olympic spirit going on at these international athletic competitions. Despite all that's going on in the world, why do we keep this spirit up? Why do you're so full of positive energy? How do we keep it up in times like this?
Well, when I worked for long jump event during the Para Athletic World Championships, I saw Mr. Marcus Ray representing Germany. Actually, he won the gold medal with the 8 meters and 30 centimeters. And during the competition, and most of the athletes asked the comment to Mr. Ray about how was my jump so far. So I saw the sportsmanship, even though they are competing each other, and their friendship. And I really love to see the sportsmanship in the world athletic level.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how many people can come together and work together, even when they're adversaries, right? And in as much as, we want everyone to succeed. Those of us who are coaches, those of us who are educators in this group, those of us who have been around sports our entire life, our job is not so much to win all the time as it is to put everybody in the best position to succeed. And at the very, very highest level, we see this every 4 years, and it's quite a powerful thing, as you guys have so eloquently put, quite a powerful thing to see every 4 years us kind of put aside everything that's going on, whether it's disagreements or competition, and just be in this very childlike, we're going to compete against one another, we're going to help one another, or we're going to have a great time doing it. Thank you so much for your responses there. Moving on in a Springfield College way to the second part of our triangle, the mind. When we look at the members of the Olympic team in the United States, Canada, Bermuda, or any of the 206 nations represented in the 2024 Olympics, I think we're all astounded by the physical gifts that we're witnessing. But so much of being an athlete, a world-class athlete, is mental. In training, in preparation, in recovery, the mind, to me, is an incredibly fascinating feature to all of this incredible success. We're going to start with Christy. Can you, from your perspective, explain how an athlete is able to marry their physical gifts with a mindset that can put them in the stratosphere that they're in?
How much time do we have?
Keep going.
I mean,
We have all
honestly,
night.
did you ask a bit harder question? I love
After 90 minutes, we all get to charge. So
okay, I know. You know what? I so appreciate it. Obviously, that's my world around that, and Aisha as well. So please, add in. I guess to really make to make it concise is, the mental game is so intangible in so many ways. So a lot of people in my position, our coaches, each of you that have a hand in it, really try to provide the athletes with the most valuable skills that can allow them to perform under those pressure moments. And it starts when they're young. You know, we've got, in Canada, we have a model called the Gold Medal Profile that basically pulls together fundamental skills around motivation, confidence, resilience. And then we look at interpersonal skills, and then we look at self-regulation skills. And the cool thing about it is all these skills are pretty much what a human needs for good mental health as well. So we are looking, you know, as we've talked about, the role has gone larger into a mental health field as well. So, you know, how do we pull it all together? Practice, 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 trial and error, get messy, get clunky, enjoy success, pull every success that you can from every day. One of the quotes that I gave my rowers was about like perseverance is not the long race, it's all the small races each day, right? And so it is the absolute high performance behaviors that they're doing every day, which get them to that high performance space. And it's not easy, there's no guarantees, but you know, you give them plenty of opportunities to continue to build those skills and perform and learn and grow. And, you know, the more we can keep that mindset of growing each time you're out, it's so powerful. I was blessed to have really good relationships with the athletes that were in Paris, because I was with most all of them in Tokyo as well. So we already had that established, and I knew for some of them it was their very first Olympics, for just a few of them, and then the others it was their second and likely their last. So, you know, working with each of those athletes was such a unique approach, because they had different needs, but at the same time, they all came together for that common goal of, we're going for gold. Yeah, and it was basically, you know, how do you a lot of teamwork, a ton of culture work. You got to get along enough to be on the same page, and that was really made some significant differences. So yeah, I could talk all day, but I won't.
Sure. No, and I think, you know, what you said was so good. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, their experience with hearing about mental health, at least at that highest level, you know, shout out to Simone Biles for being so open and candid about it. My next question, just as a follow-up, because of something you said, is how much of these athletes are so used to being the best, right? So many people are really good at what they do, and oftentimes that's not just limited to sports. They're often the best at school or things like that. You know, do you find that athletes have historically been open to mental health kind of services that you do, or have they fought it for a while? Are they opening up a little bit more? What's that dynamic been like? Has it been changing?
Yeah, you know what, and I'll say my piece, and then I again, I keep referring to Aisha being in the mental performance world too.
She's next.
And as an athlete, so yeah. So to answer your question, it's growing, and I will tell you, there's a real difference between sport cultures on the acceptance of mental wellness conversations and mental performance. So, you know, it depends on what that daily training environment is. It depends on what the leaders in the sport are open to. If you've got a coach bringing you in to say, here, this is what we're doing, you know, it's really helpful. A lot of the athletes, you know, I'm lucky to be embedded in that scene day to day. They know me as a person. You have to gain that trust, and then it's easier to work with people. But yes, do I get athletes that are like, coach told me to come and talk to you? You know, I know we have to deal with those too, but it's my job to make sure that, you know, I can connect with that person and, you know, work with them in that way. So it is growing for sure. It's getting there, and we are expanding it beyond the sport performance, but also life performance.
That's incredible. And Aisha, I'd love you to follow up on Christy. What's your opinion on this stuff?
So I participated in 2 games. When I first participated in Rio, I was 28, and then 8 years later, I was a little bit older. Definitely 2 different mindsets. And if I had a chance to tell my younger self what I'll do at the Rio Olympic Games, is to have fun. We are out there and we're doing this every single day, and having fun is important. And when I went back to rowing, after I retired from Rio, I went back to rowing. Everyone saw me as a different person because I was just having fun, and I was performing so much better when I'm having fun. So when, of course, coaches like to tell athletes that. And then for me as an athlete as well, when my coach pushes me out, I mean, like, not into the water, but when he shows me off the dock to go to my race, he will say, have fun. And you're like, oh, stop it. That is so essential to kind of remind yourself why you do it, right? Because you're involved in the sport. And if there's any athletes as participants here today, I highly encourage you to work with the athletic counseling team, the department, because it's so valuable what they offer. Christy and me, we're part of the athletic counseling in Springfield when we were students, and we had a chance to work with athletes in Springfield College. And yes, sometimes people are open to the idea and sometimes people are not so open. But even Olympians work with a mental health or mental performance coach. And when I work with athletes, that kind of like inspired me to work with one myself. And that was how I kind of like found my way back into rowing competitively. And yeah, everyone has, even though you don't think you have issues, you have issues. but it's more of like that openness to want to improve, to be better. And I guess that's the spirit of Olympism, isn't it? Wanting to be excellent. And that's about having that growth mindset. So yeah, it's all about being better.
Yeah, I mean, it's often, you know, even with the fight, with the pushback of I don't want to do this, I don't want to open myself up like this. There's often, Olympic athletes, as you know, are very determined to accomplish that physical goal. And it's like, if we want to do this, we have to have this too, right? So it's often probably a way into that. I want to ask about this from Chris. You know, we're talking about this this mental health stuff, and gaining any advantage you can. How does that mindset work for you in terms of dealing with people around the anti-doping world?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of education, right? There's a lot of variables, and especially in my space about understanding the rules and regulations around anti-doping, why an athlete might even take that route. Obviously, there's a lot of mental aspects, there's physical aspects, right? So, as an NGB and kind of my role, it's a lot about education and having a better understanding of where these athletes are, what their goals are, right? We talked about mental health. We talked about not every athlete is going to win a gold out there, and what's success look like for them, right? Is it just making the team? Is it making a final? Is it is it winning the gold? Whatever it may be, how can we support them in that goal? And also follow the rules and regulations that go along with that, right? And so it sometimes is tough, as you can imagine, as athletes progress in their career, hit higher marks, faster marks, make national teams, make world championships, make Olympics. Sometimes the pressures of staying at the top or competing at that high level gets tougher and tougher. Us as an NGB, we try to support them any way we can. So it's not just the education, but it's surrounding them with the right coaches, the right resources, mental health professionals, athletic trainers. We've had a large investment in that space and track and field in our NGB space to make sure every athlete at all levels are supported in those resources or have access to those things. So it can be tough, especially in track and field where we have a team of 150% of the games. We have like 1,000 athletes that go to trials. So we have a wide range of athletes that we're looking to support. So obviously limited resources. So what does that look like for us as an NGB? How do we support all these athletes at various levels? And obviously, specifically in my space, I'm kind of one module that the entire team, I handle the anti-doping space, but the holistic view of how can we support the athlete as a whole in all aspects of the sport. So it's tough, it's not easy, and it's ever changing, never growing. I'm sure I'm not a mental health expert, but I'm sure that's obviously more focused than it was maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I'm sure it'll continue to shift as sport grows. So it's us kind of trying to be ahead of the curve and understanding what are the needs of the athletes and how can we as an NGP, as professionals in the space, how can we continue to provide support with those athletes?
Sure. Yeah. And you got to imagine, as you said, it's so cutthroat. There's only so many spots. There's only, even for the best athletes, there's only so high you can jump, only so far you can jump, only so fast you can run. You have to imagine that there is a temptation there to kind of do stuff outside of the rules, right?
For sure. Yeah, it's tough. It's obviously, as an NGB, we have the goal of winning the most medals, right? We do focus on performance, and that's That's one of the goals as an NGB. We kind of put that pressure on ourselves to make sure that we're performing at a high level. But we understand that there's other measurements of success, right? It's not just goals. It's how are these athletes performing? How are we, maybe at the grassroots level, how are we progressing our athletes from youth athletes to collegiate athletes, professional athletes? What does that look like as a whole? So as much as we focus on the medal count, gold medals, things of that nature, there are other aspects to sport that should get the same amount of attention and resources. And it's getting better for sure. And I think athletes, especially as they continue to express their voice and making sure that they're in the room with some of these decisions are made at a very high level, I think we'll continue to recognize those things and see how we can continue to support athletes.
Sure, thanks. Mike, I have a question in this space for you. Because I'm fascinated. We're going to talk more about body and spirit, but with the mind, looking at these athletes. You were at Hayward Field, you were at the Olympic trials, watching these athletes prepare. There's so much, as we said, so much about sports is that mental preparation. What did you notice about the preparation, not so much in the physical space, but in the mental space in your time during the Olympic trials?
Great. So the organization I work with is an athlete representation company. So I have access to top level athletes just through, just because they're on our roster of talent. And speaking with athletes, particularly if you're there at Hayward Field, where you meet them and before they go to race, as they check in first call and things like that, you have a chat with them, because you have a relationship with them, and you ask them, say, hey, how you feel, just generally, hey, how you feeling today? And they're all like, hey, great, all in great spirits, and they all want to do well. But when you have a real chat with them, they're like, the sentiment from the USA trials this year was that actually the making the USA team is harder than actually the Olympics. And I was like, wow, tell me about it. And and they say, well, look, hey, the depth of field. If you look at all the sprinters, we have, USA, USA has, a depth chart of some amazing sprinters that you're going to get past. And so when they talk about how to be sort of in that mindset, you got to be really confident in yourself and have great bravado. And look at Noah Lyles. He's out there. He's I say outrageous, but he's out there. He's confident in himself, and he really believes that he will be champion. And then that attitude obviously works for him. And you got other athletes that I see also that sort of know that they're in form. They know, they feel that they're ready to go. This is their time, and they, through their coaching and sort of training, that this is their peak, and they feel really great. So the mental aspect is widely is different, sort of preparation between the athlete, but the sort of level which they at, they all know that this is, make it or break it. And you can see some athletes were missing, some top level athletes were missing from the Olympic trials, from the Olympics this year, just because they didn't make it through the trials. And it wasn't through mental preparation. It's just, again, it's just a really competitive field. And, if they get over that, then that's what we see. We see the best as they come into the summer.
Sure, that's a really interesting point too. As you said, the United States, the depth of the United States team is so strong. I look at it through a lens. I'm a little bit into the swimming world, and you look at like the American backstrokers. I think the American backstrokers said the fourth best backstroker would be the third best woman in the world, or whatever, outside of America, and it's incredible, and it's amazing to me. You look at how these people warm up. Right. There's a difference, right? Some people, like you said, Noah Lyles is going to jump around and yell and scream, and other people are just going to walk in very, very seriously, very solemnly. They're staring straight ahead, tunnel vision, blinders on.
Yeah. And just to add to that too, if you ever, I'm usually sometimes back at house to these events, and sprinters, final call, they put their bibs on, the room, Chris, you've probably been there too. The room is dead silent. Everyone's focused. Everyone's, mean mugging. Everyone's getting in their phase to get ready. When it comes to the throws, they're like, yeah, what's up, man? How's things going? And they're very jovial. So that mental preparation between the performances is very different, depending on what kind of athlete you have.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Gabby, we're going to just kind of go outside of the box a little bit here. Gabby, you put in undoubtable long hours for those, probably not even just those 17 days of the Olympics, but long hours covering this Olympics and making sure everybody got the best viewing experience of that. What was that mindset going in, these long hours, looking at these events, and what are we showing, what are we not, how are we packaging this together? What was that like for you? And did you take anything I know you were a previous athlete, did you take anything from your compartmentalization of a college athlete into your work with NBC?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, going into it, sort of what you're getting yourself into, and this was my third Olympics with NBC, so I had a decent sense of, okay, 12-hour shifts, 21 days straight, no days off, like, it'll be fine, we'll be fine, you know? But it really is about just making sure that our audience is getting the best possible experience, that we're leaning into those moments that are the unique ones. Like, yes, the highlight packs are great and people want to see the results and things like that, but they're really the humanizing moments, the ones that people remember are ones that we really try to prioritize and really lean into, whether it's YouTube Shorts or I work very closely with our team of craft editors, so to speak, and so their job is to take a look at things from a thematical standpoint, from a narrative standpoint, a storytelling standpoint, and really dive deeper into, you know, this athlete, what's really unique about them, and what's the real story there. And so it's a balance of trying to make sure that you're covering all the breaking news, all the best stuff, making it accessible, having it in all the best places, but also having to prioritize because there's a million things going on during the Olympics, you know, especially the Summer Olympics in particular, Winter Olympics, there are fewer events going on, so it's a little bit easier to try to thread that needle. But yeah, definitely compartmentalizing and prioritizing and over communicating everything is something that definitely stands out.
What are some of the things that you did with your team at NBC to kind of feel, I don't want to say downtime, that's probably the wrong word, but to kind of decompress when you had moments? Because there were moments that there was nothing going on. Paris was asleep while we were watching it primetime. What were those moments of decompressing like for you, or was that non-existent?
Very, very hard to come by, but we did. NBC, I will say, does a fantastic job of trying to incorporate pick-me-ups throughout the office. They had, you know, a food truck I think we had a few different food trucks. The gourmet grilled cheese one was my favorite, so that one really stands out. But they had some food trucks. They had one day they turned this like open area that we call downstairs, and they turned it into like a Parisian cafe, and you know they set it all up and they had music playing, and it was like just knowing that like, okay, I can step away for 5 minutes to go get a hot chocolate and a pastry, and then I can come back and like the world's not gonna end, like it's okay to step away. So we didn't have very many of those moments, but you know, in those moments where it's like, wow, this could be a world record breaking moment, like those memories are gonna stick out with me probably for the rest of my life, because you've got our whole editorial team upstairs crowded around trying to figure out which TV was slightly ahead of all the other TVs that we had, and then you just have like 40 people gathered around one TV shouting, because we are fans at the end of the day, right? We are fans, and you know, so there were very, very few moments of that, but they were special.
Yeah, it sounds both exhilarating and exhausting at
That's the
very
perfect way to describe it.
at the very same time. Well, you know, I'll say on behalf of the Springfield College community, we thank you for bringing Snoop into our lives every night for those 17 days. It was much appreciated. Very good. Well, I appreciate all of your input there on the question of mind. Moving on to the third leg of our triangle here, the body. You know, despite the best technological advantages, sorry, Gabby, in coverage, what's often lost in translation between the screen and the field is how remarkably faster, stronger, and higher these people are performing. We're going to start with Aisha here, but what was your experience watching up close people perform at the height of their athletic abilities? This is a level most people can't even imagine getting to. Is it something you can even describe?
Wow.
I don't know. I'm talking from being an Olympian. So I'm talking about myself, I guess. No. I would say it does. I mean, I feel like we are normal people. But we have definitely put in hours and hours, years and years of work into it. Even though I would say that when I started training again for Paris. It took me 4 months to qualify. I started rowing, and then 4 months later, I went for the qualification. But 4 months of intense rowing. And from 2016 to that first month of that 4 months, I was doing a lot of other things like running, weightlifting, triathlon, cycling. So my body is always moving. And I think that is the beauty of us being athletes. And even all of us who are not Olympic athletes, but we have I mean, that's a Nike saying, right? You have a body, you're an athlete. So make use of it, move it. And I think there's a thing about being an Olympian as well. For a rower, I'm 5'9", I'm tiny. I'm like average women height for a rower is 6'2", I think. But it doesn't matter. Like some of us were talking about body shapes and sizes. Like athletes come in different shapes and sizes. And I think that's the beauty of making use of what you have. And that's your strength. That's the only thing that you have. You can't change it. So make full use of your body. And that's what athletes are good at doing. They use their bodies.
Sure, it's a complete understanding of that body. I appreciate you calling all of us athletes. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long time since anyway, maybe the first time ever for me. Branwen, we had a really nice discussion earlier today about some of the things that you saw kind of at ground level. And I'd love if you explain to us explain to everyone what you talked about Sydney McLaughlin and watching her up close. What is it like watching someone with those physical gifts from so close?
Yeah, I think first off, I think it's great that, athletes at that level, people think, oh, they're just naturally gifted, this, whatever. But they have to work hard at their craft like anything they do in life. So for me, going to Paris, there are certain sports like athletes I wanted to see compete, and she was obviously one of the top athletes, just to see with ease how she competes. But I think, they appreciate what they have and what their abilities are, but they also work extremely hard to sculpture, their bodies to be in the best physical shape that they can be in. The science and everything that's going, Springfield, science and sport is so much different from when I was in college. But, having worked at university, you see how all those little tiny components add up to performance. I know of some athletes, for example, from the Caribbean and Caribbean, actually, sprinters, they're not going to stay in the village, because if there are steps, as an example, they don't want to waste their energy going up 2 or 3 or 4 flights of steps. When I first heard that, oh, that's ridiculous. But when you think about it, all those little things add up. And to watch someone like Sydney or Duplantis to perform, they make it look so easy. But we know, right? All of us know that it's not easy. And so the fact that they're taking what they've been given and they've really continued to master their skill. And it's, it's like a song, everything has to come together, not just the physical, but the psychological, everything, all the elements have to be in place, the weather, the wind, and, having spent, some time, back when I was younger, I went to Greece and just to study, the Greeks and the history of the Olympic Games and the worshiping of the bodies. It's just fantastic. And, so for me, having been around a little longer than most of you on the panel, really appreciate that opportunity to be able to witness, firsthand. I know when Sydney came up to get her medal, she was with, the gold and silver, bronze. They have this ceremony that they have, and I got right up there. I'm pushing people aside. I made sure I got my picture. And even when she was getting, when they played the national anthem and on the big screen, they don't take that for granted, and a lot of them keep their emotions intact. Not all sprinters don't normally. But to just watch her as a young woman, so young, to perfect what she's done. And I know a little about track and field, so I know some of the technical components of her running, what she does, and the number of steps she takes between the hurdles. Nobody else does that. All those technical things, and it's, so it's a combination of the mind and the body. So I just really appreciate it because I've been around sport. All we all appreciate that, but to see it in person, that just made my day. To watch those athletes in every sport that I went to.
It almost looks like a different breed of human being. Honestly, just the ease with which they have control over their bodies. And you mentioned it earlier about Duplantis just going up like 1 centimeter to break the world record. These little tiny differences in whether they do different size poles, different approaches. It's something else to watch. Keith, I was interested in your take here because at the risk of offending you, I don't think I will, but the niche sport of judo, what is it like watching athletes from that realm compete at the highest level?
So why would you offend me with that, Matt? I mean,
I don't want to call judo a niche sport. I mean, I don't know. It would, yeah, I don't know how we do that. I don't know.
These judo guys, they like to throw people through the floor. So, I might have to send one after you
That's
there.
true. I'll give you Gabby's address. You can throw her on she'll be my proxy.
Yeah, well, ironically enough, judo means the gentle way in Japanese. And is that right, Kazoo? Yeah. So it doesn't look that gentle sometimes, but it has a moral code to it. And working with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee Sport Performance Group, they say it is like one of the best foundational sports for any kind of cross training. So shameless plug out there for judo, especially for those that have kids. But it's a niche sport in the United States. We're considered a developing country still. But, when you look at Japan or France, having the games in Tokyo and then in Paris, those are two very well, and even going back to Rio, those are all very strong judo countries. And so, here in the United States, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seems to take the lead, is kind of a niche sport, but there's not a lot of throwing there. So we say BJJ means basically just judo. It's the ground fighting of judo, but people don't like to take falls, understandably. But with that niche, for Americans, yes, but in France, which we've done a partnership with them in kind of a sphere of Olympism, is one of the top countries in the world. Judo is introduced to those students in their schools. And so, and I was talking with Kazoo before we get on, is he a judoka? And, he's one of the few Japanese nationals that isn't a judoka, right? It's one of the national team sports in Japan.
Yes.
So, I think like when we say a niche sport, sometimes we have to be careful, what we're looking at through the eyes of an American versus maybe another country. So no offense taken, but thanks for the opportunity to share that.
Yeah, no, I guess my main question was, what I was getting to was, for 4 years, this is the only time most Americans follow judo or swimming or as opposed to basketball, right? There are people who watch gymnastics and swimming. We understand that. But mostly it's basketball, but every 4 years we get a chance to watch judo.
Yes.
What is it on the ground level about watching some of those sports, less popular mainstream sports, maybe at the Olympic level? What is it like watching those sports that we don't necessarily see every 4 years?
Yeah, well, it is. It's a great opportunity, right? Whether it's judo or rowing, maybe, or how many of us watch fencing on a daily basis?
Right, exactly my question.
To watch that, yeah. So, I think what is interesting is for me, again, our team had a small number, and so I actually came home when the team event was going on, and if you watched it, it was on, I think, a Sunday morning, and it was Japan versus France, two of the top teams in judo. And if you had a chance to watch that and see how it came down to the wire, and they had to go into like a golden score with Teddy Raniere, who I said earlier, I think maybe before it started, is like the Michael Jordan of judo, and to have the heavyweights of France and Japan to go against, whether what's happening or not, you can feel the tension and the competitiveness and the golden score, the overtime, sudden death type of mentality. And to have that on a Sunday morning across the United States on NBC, thank you, Gabby. That's a great exposure for us. Or like I said, the Snoop Dogg effect, for him to come and try judo and have 780,000 views on Instagram. Those are the times that, yes, our sport can finally be exposed to the American public. And, hopefully we see a bump in our membership from that. And our membership is growing, whether it is directly related or not, it's hard to say. But we'll take that. We wish it would be more than every 4 years, honestly. I mean, if we can watch cornhole being played on ESPN, I would hope that we could get judo on more. But we're a small sport that just doesn't have those finances. And for those that are watching, that may not know, I mean, the United States is one of the few countries of the 205 that do not get government funding. And so we say, America doesn't send our Olympians and Paralympians to the games, Americans do. And so, we're, at least in judo, being outspent 20 to 1 dollars wise and trying to compete with these folks. And, we have our advantages thanks to NBC broadcasting, but I think that's an interesting piece, not to segue too much here, Matt, but, Team USA is often, underfunded compared to other countries that are getting federal funds.
Sure. Well, and that's where we hope that Snoop Dogg / Olympic bump comes from, right?
Yeah,
So
Gabby's going to make him a judoka for LA. So we're good.
I'll see what I can do. I'll make a few calls, see what I can do.
We
I
like
appreciate it.
Chris, I wanted real quickly to get your take on it because arguably you work as closely with anybody, these Olympic athletes as anybody. What is it like dealing with people who are so finally in tune to what their bodies can and are capable, can do and are capable of? What's it like working with those people?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, I work in a sport that I competed in. So I guess I have some perspective, and not that I was elite, I qualified. I thought I was fast at one point in my life, and then saw some of these athletes, and I realized I was never really that fast. But it's wild. I mean, I think a couple of people went into it. Brandon went into it. I mean, these guys are training, day in, day out. Every detail matters. We have a lot of athletes that train across various places of the country, and I see them in little pockets, when we're at outdoor championships, trials, world championships, games, things of that nature. And that's when they're tuned up at the highest level, right? And everything matters, right? So it's down to their nutrition. We talked about, I was in the village. We talked about, some athletes not staying in the village just because, the amount of steps they might take, or given their popularity, the amount of, autographs they might have to sign, or their health, right? Just staying away from potential sickness, right? So things like that. There's so many small little details that go into such a large performance. And it takes a village, right? For lack of a better term. It takes everyone to be part of that. And although I may not, be the coach for a particular athlete, anti-doping is a small piece. But again, I spoke about it before, the NGP is kind of our role to position these athletes in the best spot to succeed, right? So if that's providing them with the proper nutrition, the right coach, making sure they have big enough beds in the village, or they don't want to stay in the village, get an Airbnb, whatever it may be for that particular athlete, we want to make sure we're providing and supporting them in the best way possible. But yeah, it's crazy to see them compete at that highest level. I didn't get to see too many other sports just because given my role, I was pretty hogged down to the village. So I saw a lot of track and field, but again, seeing these athletes compete at that level, it's wild, and the atmosphere is just different. I think we talked about it before. You can't really describe it. Just being in a stadium at that level is like nothing you imagine, and it's something that I wish everyone could experience, not just all of us who were, who maybe had the opportunity to maybe be there or see it on TV or whatnot, but it's something that I wished everyone could experience just because it's different. It's just the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, and now can we get a little insider information in terms of what was the sentiment when Noah Lyles kind of bucked the advice of not interacting with the general public and came back with COVID? Was there a level of like, oh no, we failed?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you can't really control, right? I mean, I'll err on the side of caution and not say too many details about what occurred. But obviously, we internally, our med staff always says the biggest thing that could affect our performance is our health, right? So we try to take extra caution on make sure athletes are staying healthy. Again, like I said, eating the right things. COVID is obviously always still a potential, so we're trying to making sure everyone's staying clean and things of that nature. And it's just it's kind of an unfortunate situation. And again, our job is to make sure we position our athletes in the best way. Now they're adults; it's up to them on how they want to move on their own. But again, like I said, it's our job to make sure we position them for their success. And I mean, he had a great game. So I mean, even with
he did.
Even with having the sickness, right? So I think we did a pretty good job of making sure that he was as healthy as he could be, and to perform as well as he could. So it was tough. Obviously, we had some higher aspirations for him, but we'll be back. You'll be seeing more of him for sure.
Sure. Give me a second here. Christy, I think you wanted to add something in here.
I did just a real quick thing, just to kind of play off of what Chris was talking about. One of the things that I would say we and just shout out to the sports scientists out there, we're really focusing on the value of recovery. So when talk of building the body, we've got that. We're good. We're there. But it's about that negative space. What's not, what you're doing to maximize your ability to build that body when you're not training. So that's a big piece that we focused on a lot, about that downtime. How do you maximize that and get optimal recovery mentally, physically, to be able to keep building? So I just wanted to point that out as another major piece in, of course, the mind body connection of is just that valuable recovery time. So Gabby talked about not having any, but she was at a food truck, and that counts, right? So that's just another significant piece to that, the holistic athlete.
Sure. Who amongst us hasn't recovered at a food truck? As we move along, this has been great. I love talking about spirit, mind, and body, and kind of connecting it to Olympics and all that we do and all these things we care about. Not the final question, but as we start to wrap up a little bit, I want to talk about the legacy of 2024. When we all inevitably tune into the Los Angeles Games or the Australian Games or the Winter Olympics in Italy, and well into the future, what are the highlight packages going to show? What are the stories and images that'll make you think, wow, I remember where I was watching that. I remember who I was with. And I'd like to start there with Tom, because I think I know his answer, but I want to know, when he's looking at this Olympic coverage in the future, what are the moments that are really going to stand out to him?
Well, I mean, coaching an Olympic athlete is just something that's unbelievable. I mean, like I said, it was a dream of mine. I mean, I had another boy that I was hoping to make the Olympics quite a few years ago, and he didn't quite make it. And having this gentleman hit the Olympic trail, and he did real well at the World Championships, and he's on his way to hopefully competing in 2 more Olympics. It's electrifying. I was very, very lucky to have a young man walk into my facility with this much drive. And I'll never forget that.
That's great. Mike, what are you going to look at in 20 years and say, oh, I remember that. That was wonderful.
Oh boy, what would you remember? I mean, this past Olympics, you had such great firsts. Women's, again, I lean to track because I'm a track guy. Women's 100 meters. Julian Alfred, the first medal for our country. You had Pakistan's Arshad Nadeem, winning his first medal for Pakistan in the Olympics too. So you get a lot of firsts, and you get those stories that happen through the Olympics. We'll go through again. It'll always be one. What I would say is that what's great about, as we progress through technology and excuse me, and the games, is that we're actually getting closer to Olympic athletes, in terms of we're getting closer to access to them. And you look at sort of success stories such as women's rugby and Ilona Maher. When she first started at the Olympics, she had 600,000 followers, and then by the end she had over 3 million. We're connected with each other more, so you go back, you remember like, oh yeah, I remember following that person. I remember when they broke that record, and through their engagement, many athletes have their own foundations, their causes, their brands. We get to know them more and we get to remember them more. And I think as we progress through Olympics, particularly in LA 28, it's on our home turf, we're going to start to be, I feel that fans are starting to really integrate their fanship more going forward, and we'll remember athletes and their story rather than just 100 meters or just a 400 meters. So that's what I think. I think that we're going to be more connected to athletes.
That's a great point. Traditional media is so static, right? There's just one way kind of we receive it. We watch them on TV, we read about them in books or magazines. But now digital media is going in a place where it's much more of a two-way street. We can interact with people. We're not reading an article about Sydney McLaughlin anymore. We are hearing her speak from her Instagram account. We are watching
Yes.
These people very close up. That's a really good point. Kazoo, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. What are you going to remember about the 2024 games?
Well, 2024 games, I think Japan won the most number of medals in the history of Olympics. I was happy about it. And Keith just mentioned that the Japanese judo Japanese national team competed against France, and they went to the overtime. I watched the TV, and unfortunately, we lost. But it was a great game, and the competition was awesome. And generally, I could not watch a lot of Olympic games because of the time difference. But I was very happy that the Japan national team won the most number of medals in the Paris. And I hope they will continue in the 2028.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Christy, what are the highlight packages? What are the images you're going to remember most from 2024?
Well, I really appreciate the point you brought up of that, the two-way communication, and the games were really about the athletes, being front and center, their stories. And of course, it takes people like yourselves and to give us those stories. I think, one of the most important things is the images that we can contain, and then how you guys package it to put the emotions to those images. But I think just seeing, the opening ceremonies and the visual that Paris, the show that they put on, and how they, created these incredible venues, I think it would be definitely a piece of it. Personally, obviously, my own experiences with our rowing team and just the work that they did, and the watching after an athlete wins a medal, after they win medals, you don't see them for a long time because they're often doing all the press junket. So things like that are pretty remarkable that you don't always get to see. You're really front row for those types of things. So those are some things that come to my mind.
That's great. And so last but not least, Gabby, you're going to be the one putting this together. I hope you were taking notes. But what are the packages, if you're still with NBC in 4 years or 8 years, what are the packages that you're going to want to put together and say, well, this is how we want to remember the last Olympics, and let's usher in a new Olympic Games? What are those images for you?
For me, I mean, to piggyback off of the theme that's been said, it's the access, right? And I think that that'll continue to be something to keep a close eye on, just in terms of I want to say this was the first year that we credentialed influencers to be at the games, and sort of as that all, transitions in the future, I just think that we're going to be able to tell a lot more stories of a lot more unique individuals, as opposed to just focusing on who's going to get the medals, and I think that that's something to definitely keep a close eye on. I also just love the new sports that get added every year, and whether they stick around or not, but I just think that makes every Olympic Games just so unique and stand out. I made it my personal mission to get everybody hyped about kayak cross. As a licensed whitewater guide, I was very excited for kayak cross, and all of my colleagues are like, what are you talking about? Yes, we have the research packet from the research team on this sport, but why are you so excited about it? And so it's those unique sports, kind of like we had talked about earlier today too, is just being able to enjoy it and just embrace whatever it is that we get to watch. But yeah.
That's incredible. Oh, I thank you all for your memories there. If I can ask one last question of all of you as we start to shuffle off this call, I've got some audience questions, but before we get to that, I'm going to start in the original order that we went in, starting with Tom and coming through to Aisha. And I want to know, given your experiences at Springfield College, think about the times on Alden Street in the classroom, athletic fields, and with lifelong friends. How did that prepare you for life in the Olympics world? We'll start with you, Tom.
Well, I became a physical education teacher for 22 years. And as a gymnastics coach, my athletic director made me do gym shows with tableaus every single year. So it really set me up. And I'm still pretty much connected to the Springfield College gymnastics program there. I've had quite a few athletes go there. So, I mean, I have a lot to be thankful for Springfield College, what they taught me. And now that I'm retired, I still go around and coach for free and travel around. I really enjoyed Springfield College, gave me what I am. Thank you.
That's great. Brandon.
Yeah, you got all night for that answer. I think, you know, being at Springfield was a affirmation for me. And I think, you know, the installation of why we do what we do and helping young people through sport as ambassadors for their countries or wherever you're from, the benefits, you know, and as I've gotten older, the value of wellness in your life and lifelong journey in sport. And, you know, we all know people who have been world-class athletes or not world-class athletes, you know, but try to be athletes and look what how they're giving back to their communities. And sport is a way of bringing people together. So I think during my 5 years at Springfield, I think I didn't, you know, when you're 21, do you appreciate everything? No, you just want to graduate, get out, get a job, and make some money, right? But it didn't take me too long, within a year or two, to realize what a wonderful education I had at Springfield and try to be engaged. I think I'm going to give a push for Maria and all our great work that they do in the alumni office, how important it is for us to give back in whatever way we can. So for me, that's been my life journey, being part of sport and working with young people, especially empowering young women, and to see it at the top level. It doesn't matter what level you're on. You put the effort and time in and be good people. You know, you're making a positive contribution to your community. So that's kind of my take on my experiences while I was at Springfield.
No, that's beautifully put. Keith, what are some of the lessons you are taking from Springfield College into your Olympic work?
Well, I think, you know, like you've tied it together, Matt, the spirit, mind, body aspect, it transfers well into the whole spirit of Olympism. And, you know, when you're traveling the world and been blessed to do that, and, you know, you try to have that open mind and a humanics type of philosophy that, you know, you want to be respectful and outgoing and friendly and all those kind of things. And, you know, what an amazing group of people here, right? You feel that kind of common bond. And like when people meet you and you say you went to Springfield College, you're like, you Springfield people, you guys are all like really good salt of the earth type folks, right? And I think that's something that, and we all continue to wave that banner. And you know, specifically, you know, because of my role, I deal with a lot of politics and governance and things like that as an NGB CEO. And I just always will remember Dr. Mimi Murray's course of sociology of sport and saying how sport mirrors society. And I've been experiencing that a lot in NGB and you know, governance and politics and stuff within the Olympic and Paralympic movement. And, you know, boy, I mean, just that course continues to resound. I mean, I can't even count how many years later, but the SC Foundation has been huge for life and not just like professional, but personal. So eternally grateful.
I can't imagine a life in which I don't like quote my professors that I had in college. You remember who taught what classes and kind of the lessons imparted there. Christy, what did you take from Springfield into your journey?
Well, you guys have touched on it, my professors, and I think one of the really coolest things is as I've gone through my career, we have a yearly conference, and I've seen them for the last many years, and just in the last few years they've retired and that sort of thing. But having that continuation and just the dedication that they gave to the program was small, and it was really meaningful to get to know those people. So my professors, being able to connect with them back year after year after year, tell them what I'm doing, and their excitement about it, keeping me accountable too. Ooh, let's make sure I'm doing good stuff. So I think that was a big piece and the difference maker for me.
Incredible. Kazoo.
Yes, Keith just mentioned about the humanics philosophy, and I totally agree with that. And when I started learning the athletic training at Springfield College, and Professor Redmond told me that Springfield College is all about humanics, the educating the whole person, spirit, mind, and body in leadership to service to others. And that really hit my mind. And I totally appreciate the education I received at Springfield College. And I hope I continue telling my colleagues about the humanics philosophy.
That's one. Thank you so much. Chris, what about you?
We just kind of touched upon it. I think sense service to others, right? I think that's kind of what's driven me in my career path, right? And how I can assist. I mean, in this space particularly, it's athletes, Olympic athletes, and various different types of athletes, but is that sense of service to others and what we can do, individual, as a collective, as a group, whatever organization you're part of, but what can you do to impact other individuals' lives, right? And not just on a performance level, on a sport level, but on a personal level as well, right? I think that's probably one of the main things I took, and the relationships as well from Springfield. I think that's also what drives me as well. Some of the same roommates I roomed with were my best men in my wedding, and I still talk to this day, and I text from them about this call. So like those are some of the things I remember, and the things that drive me, making sure that they're still proud of me, making sure that they're still reaching out to me and saying, hey, the things you're doing are still cool, and you're doing the right thing. So those are the things that drive me day to day to continue this work.
That's really well put. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm literally getting blown up right now. I have to keep my phone on for questions from Maria. My text thread, my Springfield College friends is blowing up right now behind me on the screen. Mike, what did you take from Springfield and brought it to your Olympic journey?
Very similar to what Chris mentioned, service to others, and I did sport management as a degree with a side of nonprofit management, YMCA studies. So that's the route I went through. But how I started, as I mentioned earlier before, was just through volunteering for events. Boston Marathon, other things that happened in Massachusetts, and that led me through to definitely with my degree, seeing that, there's sports, the business of sports and the event world, there's so many angles and avenues you can go through. And I think, to have a solid college, such as Springfield College, as a degree has just launched me into being, at the right places, right time, or knowing things that helped me through the career. So great solid foundation that I had, and also the drive to want to be a part of something, whether the Olympic movement, track and field. So that's what I take from it.
That's wonderful. Gabby, you came into Springfield College as an athlete, and you went to sports journalism. How did that fuel this kind of Olympic road that you're on?
Yeah, I mean, sports have always been my passion, and at Springfield, I was able to learn the tools that I needed. As Marty always says, seek the truth and report it, minimize harm. Like these are the things that built my journalistic foundation. And I think of them daily when I'm faced with how to handle controversial, difficult, hard topics, and to not shy away from that. And then also Coach Graves and the women's basketball team for, always teaching me, assess what's going well and fix what's not going well, like what could I be doing better? What could my team be doing better? What could the company be doing better? And just continuing to try to grow,
Incredible. And last but not least, Aisha, what did you take from Springfield College?
I would agree with Keith and Christy in terms of professors impacting my lives. I still keep in touch with them, and going out to the working world, I'm so proud of being part of the athletic counseling department, because whenever I tell someone I'm from Springfield College, they're like, oh my God, you work with this professor. So I think there's a Springfield pride that comes with it. And of course, without the kind of like the athletic counseling role that I did in Springfield College working with the athletes, I wouldn't have found my way back to competitive rowing. So thanks to Springfield College, I became a two-time Olympian.
Well, we're really proud that you're representing us, for sure. We've got a couple questions, and I'm reading these in real time, so I'm hoping you'll bear with me for a second. Since there are so many cultures and languages at the Olympics, is there cultural differences in perceptions of mental health? And if so, how is that dealt with? I think there's a couple people here who might be able to take that. Christy, do you want to start?
Sure. And if I can understand the question, basically just, what's the flavor and maybe acceptance of mental health support at the Olympics with all the multicultural representation?
Yes.
I can speak for Canada. We had 3 mental health practitioners with the Canadian Olympic Committee on the ground to help all of our athletes. And I believe the IOC and, there's a lot of visual cues, environmental cues around the village, around the venues that have mental health support. I mean, you close the back, the door of a bathroom, and there's a poster there with, if you're feeling unsafe, if you need someone to talk to. They've really tried to make it visible and observable and accessible. So I do feel, and they've offered it in multiple languages. And if I understand too, it's a service that is offered beyond the Olympic time, because we know there's this post-Olympic blues that we can experience. So from my observation, I think they've come a long way in making it more observable and accessible.
Excellent. The other question that we had was, has this event helped you, this event that we're in right now, help you stay connected to Alden Street, and will you all stay connected with one another? Anyone want to take the lead there?
I will. I mean, I got everybody's names. I'll be reaching out to a few of you as resource and help and ideas and recommendations. I think that's what we do at Springfield. And so, I met folks here tonight that I didn't know prior, but don't worry, I've written down not written, on email. I have everybody's contact, like, Chrissy, you might hear from me in sports psychology. And, so I think it's, that's what we do, right? And make those connections.
Yeah, no, I think that's well put. I think, we all reached out individually to one another and gotten to know one another a little bit, and it's been a great time. So if there are no further questions or nothing anybody else wants to say, I'm going to wrap up. I want to thank all of you for participating in tonight's roundtable. I think it's safe to say that together you do embody the spirit, mind, body ethos of Springfield College. The Olympic Games represents the best in humanity and athletics and collaboration in the world. Thank you, all of you, for proudly representing Springfield College. To Maria, who put this whole thing together, thank you. And last but not least, of course, to all the people joining us from across the world, we're indebted to you hanging out with us tonight. And thank you for spending your evening with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt, for your work.
Matt. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you, Matt, for
Thanks,
your work.
guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very,
much.
very much. Great job, everybody.
Yes, and many thanks again to all of our panelists, especially Matt, and everyone who literally has joined us from around the world this evening. On behalf of Springfield College, please know how much we appreciate you taking time this evening to share your expertise, your wisdom, your experiences with our fellow alumni, students, and faculty. And to all of our attendees that joined us tonight, thank you for being a part of this very special program. And as we've talked about, the Springfield College family truly is special in so many ways. I hope to see you again, whether it's in person or virtually. Just putting in a plug for homecoming, which is October 19th. So if you are in the area or close to Western Mass, we would love to see you. Please be sure to keep in touch, and sending you all the best from Alden Street. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Going to my work.